wesn.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for a musical explosion of freedom, culture, and pure steel band magic.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth bands.
Get ready for generations of steel.
The ultimate celebration of our national instrument.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth band.
Experience the power and passion of Desperados,
Shell Invaders,
Massey Trinidad All-Stars,
First Citizens Supernovas,
and the pride of the South, Fun Click. Saturday, July 11th.
at the iconic Grandstand, Queens Park, Savannah.
And hear this one. First 800 tickets sold. Admit 2 buses on 1 ticket if bought by Saturday, June 27th.
Presented by Super Panman, Dingleston and Friends.
Supported by CCNTV 6, The Express Newspaper, and I-95.5 FM.
Generations of Steel, the biggest pan event after Panorama.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
wesn.
Not so scruffy this morning, am I? Sure, Michael Smaller, this is Talking Point of WSND Corner in Capital. One of the things that I feel that I haven't spoken about, I didn't get a chance because I believe the story more or less broke while I was on air, just before, just after the last time I was on air, which would have been last week, Friday. And it's a tricky story for me to comment on because there's potentially a lot of traps and minefields and that I technically should be concerned about stepping on. And that is with regards to one senior investigative journalist, as described by another media house, his resignation from Guardian Media, which as far as I am aware, has not been commented on heavily, and perhaps there's a chapter of this that I am missing. But I'll frame it this way. When I first saw the post, I found it very interesting. Interesting in the sense of what could have prompted someone to put something out like this, right? Assuming that it's completely true and everything is 100% face value. Because there's layers to this that makes it difficult. First of all, commenting on another media house in such a capacity, it's one thing for me to speak about Newsday or Loop when they close down and expressing regret of their closing. It's another thing to now wade into the waters of the question that this whole thing has raised. What's going on with Guardian Media Limited with regards to ethical questions, right? Because of course we are technically a competitor, not necessarily the Guardian newspaper directly, but we are technically a competitor, so you have to take everything I say with a grain of salt if I'm speaking about Guardian Media Limited, whatever I say about them. And generally about this topic. For a reporter to resign at this point in time, for anybody in media to resign from their position at this point in time, is a tricky thing because you just saw media houses close. You just saw a newspaper close, a major newspaper, and the other major newspaper started downsizing. I don't know what Mr. Simangal's plans are. I don't know what his intentions are. I don't know where he's going to apply for work moving forward, if he needs to, if he doesn't. I don't know. But the timing is interesting because it suggests this is not something to be done easily unless you have not thought things through, which maybe his frustration reached a boiling point for whatever reason and he wasn't thinking in the moment. And there's so much we don't know. But then there's an added dimension to it all, and it is essentially this question, because the Prime Minister has basically come out and criticized Guardian Media Limited, describing it as, quote, an unethical puppet organization. Now, given what was put out there, you could technically understand why. The question is, to what extent do you believe her? Because, of course, Guardian Media Limited is one of the media houses throughout its various subsidiaries that provide reporting, news reporting, and commentary on issues. So now the question is, to what extent do you not believe any content that comes from the TV station, the newspaper, etc., etc.? How far will it go? Because the timing of the situation was very interesting insofar that there was a lot of negative press now starting to come after the government, while having negative stories about the opposition. I feel as though those stories, not necessarily that they are much to do about nothing, but they're not necessarily enough to monopolize the national attention. Even the TNTech list situation I found was questionable. And how it was done implies that it was not a good faith argument, but a bad faith argument. So now we are left with a conundrum, because there have been rumors and people have made observations, and you could speculate, and I myself have seen things to cause me to question what's going on with certain TV stations and newspapers which are of this entity, this organization. Of course, the flip side is, they report on news, it's not as though everything they say is obviously a lie, and therein lies the problem. Because you could compare the stories, the content that they put out with the content that other institutions put out, and a good chunk of it lines up. It doesn't contradict other reporting. It doesn't make claims that are, in most cases at the very least, beyond what is the current norm. So what is the truth in the matter? Of course, it will be very interesting if, ironically, in one reporter's pursuit of truth, he muddies the waters, and then we potentially disbelieve when we should believe. Not saying that we should always believe, but there might still be instances, still be stories where what they're saying is correct and we need to believe. It's an unfortunate situation to be in. It's very inconvenient, but the reality is, and maybe we're not all the way there yet, where the questions demand and require answers, but if we're not all the way there, then we're further along that path. But the flip side is this: to what degree is our population ready to desire those answers? Not desire those answers for some kind of ammunition to use against a media house because they themselves are biased for the political entity that makes up the government, but rather is willing to say, no, we just need to find the truth, wherever the truth lies. No matter how inconvenient it is for us at the moment, whether it is that it's inconvenient that it causes reputational harm to a media house, or it's inconvenient that it buttresses the media house and causes reputational harm to said political entity. Doesn't matter what side of the equation loses, what matters is the truth. Are we prepared to do that? Because I would argue that those who care about politics enough to follow the news, to engage with what's going on in whatever capacity, most of the people who are willing to be engaged are biased for one side or the other. And thus, are they really pursuing the truth, or are they looking to advance their agenda, whether it is for media, for this media house, or against it? And the thing is, we've reached a point now where we could have taken solace in the past that there were enough entities doing news reporting. There were enough reporters out there in the field competing for essentially the business of the news industry. So it was a commercial enterprise, for profit operation technically. But because there were so many, it limited certain negative aspects because the competition was fierce. Now the competition is lessened. And at the end of the day, we need to understand that a media house, even Guardian Media Limited, does have to consider its survival for better and for worse. And at the end of the day, what does it mean when it doesn't have to be that the individuals involved have any sort of unethical intention. Part of it is just between various pushes and pulls of the demands of the position they find themselves in on any given Sunday. Their perspective is going to be limited, and it's one singular entity. Their perspective could be limited. And as we see our media landscape shrinking, even the best media houses with a singular perspective will then provide us with a limited one. And that's why things like this, I believe, are important, not to condemn or to protect, but to find the truth and, similar to our politicians, demand, not to say that there's a low standard, but we take it for granted. And because of that, it's very difficult then for the public to be sure. And it's very easy for speculation and rumors to run amok. Is there anything there? We see smoke. Is there fire? I don't know. I can't say. I have literally not seen anything directly or heard anything directly to do with anything like that with regards to any competitor. So I can't say. It would be wrong of me to speculate to that extent, in part because we are competing entities, right? But now, unfortunately, for better or worse, it's out there, and the Prime Minister's added fuel to that fire. And again, there will be some people who, just because she says it, they're going to disbelieve it. And at the end of the day, going back to a point that I was saying a few minutes earlier, I would prefer if we were beyond that, where instead of looking for the truth, we consider more what is the most convenient version of the truth for us in the moment. Instead of seeking the truth, we look for what is the most convenient version of the truth in order to support our biases. Because at the end of the day, right now, we have to understand the reporters at Guardian represents a significant fraction of our reporting institution. So you could suspect things, but I would argue that at the end of the day, it really comes down to this, because blanket generalizations on media houses, that could be a starting point, but that shouldn't be a conclusion. Because at the end of the day, they have so many reporters, so many writers, so many columnists, so many TV personalities. But more importantly, what you're doing is you're asking for a shortcut. I don't want to put any work to assess what's being sold to me, because news is, again, a commercial product at the end of the day. But whether it's on the internet, whether it's on a local TV station, whether it's on a local newspaper, whether it's on a website, we have a responsibility to ourselves to assess what we're reading, because it doesn't have to be an unethical, bad faith decision. It could be something simple like a mistake. And then if we take that mistake and run with it, what's going to happen? It could be something simple as just how something is framed grammatically that implies different meanings. That was one of the interesting things of having multiple newspaper articles on the same story. You got to see different perspectives. You got to see which reporter prioritized what aspect of the story when they were trying to gather facts and information. It's not to say anybody was wrong, but you had something to compare and contrast, and now that we are one newspaper down, we have less to compare and contrast. The onus should be more on us, the reader. Not to just assume this media house is fine, that media house is bad. But for each individual story, seek out the truth. Look at the details. You know, maybe somebody told the reporter a wrong thing. Maybe they just made a mistake. Maybe the eyewitness gave them a mama guy story, but they reported it anyway for the sake of transparency and completeness. Look at the details. Seek out the truth in all things. If we do that, well, I would argue so many things would be better off, because the landscape would change by default. And then it wouldn't necessarily be such a big issue with regards to what media houses do in this and what political parties do in that. Because one of the things that I thought about this weekend on different topics is, at some point, the general public, whether it is this country, whether it's a larger country, whether it's the international community, at some point the wider public needs to figure out, A, we are the consumers, we can vote with our pockets. Oftentimes the information is out there if we are willing to seek it out with regards to when these businesses or entities are trying to mama-guy us or not. Oftentimes we don't reward the good ones, and we are blindly ignorant to the bad ones. And at some point, the public needs to take onus for its collective decisions, for its consensus. Because I find too often it's done by default, it's done lazily. And then we get what we get. To be fair, leadership in this country is not necessarily a strong point right now. So, it is what it is. If anything comes from this story, further, we'll comment further. But as it stands right now, it seems to be, at least officially, what's on public record, a he said, she said. That's not necessarily the most useful thing in the world. And that's why I say, regardless, you could have 15 great media houses, all tell the truth 100% of the time. That still doesn't mean that you won't have gaps and errors and limited perspectives and different opinions. And it all comes back down to, maybe each of us needs to do more work to form our own, to craft, not just to adopt our own individual opinions. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Of course, there's stuff coming out from Friday. There's stuff coming out from the weekend. The whole situation with the labor movement and the movement that was with the labor movement, that wasn't with the labor movement. And All of that next after this. Stay tuned.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for a musical explosion of freedom, culture, and pure steel band magic.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth bands.
Get ready for generations of steel.
The ultimate celebration of our national instrument.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth band.
Experience the power and passion of Desperados,
Shell Invaders,
Massey Trinidad All-Stars,
First Citizens Supernovas,
and the pride of the South, Fun Play. Saturday, July 11th.
at the iconic Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah.
And hear this one. First 800 tickets sold. Admit 2 buses on 1 ticket if bought by Saturday, June 27th.
Presented by Super Panman, Dingleston and Friends.
Supported by CCNTV 6, The Express Newspaper, and I-95.5 FM.
Generations of Steel, the biggest pan event after Panorama.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too. Call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
And we're back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital, and I guess things have taken a turn or not, but not necessarily with just one, but 2 stories. Because of course you have the ongoing situation with regards to the Joshua Samaru shooting, the Kaya Seeley arrest, and of course there is Alyssa Phillips, the activist that has been protesting the situation before, was arrested, and then apparently was on the road during the Labor Day March, and was arrested again. Now, let's start with the police's justification, because I saw very little bit, I believe, of the press conference. I don't know if I agreed with the tone. It wasn't necessarily like an outright disagreement to the tone used by the officer, but maybe I got the wrong press conference. I don't know. The police are basically saying that Alyssa Phillips and her group were not part of the Labor Day movement, the Labor Day organization. They use a specific phrase. They were not part of the trade union movement, because the trade union movement had obtained the required permission. Now, is the trade union movement an official entity? A legal entity? I would just like to know, because officially who got permission, right? That might be very important in a bit. So they're saying the trade union movement, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I am not aware of that being an official umbrella organization, right? As far as I'm aware, you have NATOC and JTOM and that's it. But they got permission, and the police said that the social activists and a small group of followers were not members of the trade union movement. Again, what is the trade union movement? Please define it for me legally in a court of law. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an official thing such as that, and I am just ignorant. It won't be the first time. I don't know everything. They attempted to join the authorized procession. According to the police, officers verified with organizers that the group was not part of the permitted profession and informed Phillips that their participation would amount to a separate public march which required its own permits. They said despite being informed, the group proceeded to form and participate in an unauthorized procession at the rear of the lawful march. Very interesting, rear at the lawful march. And then they cited provisions which required the leader of an unlawful march to disperse. Some refer to this act, including Section 116. Phillips refused to call on the group to disperse. Officers took action, and, well, she was arrested. Again. So whoever made this call, which is potentially senior officer to the scene, I would argue was not thinking long-term enough. He might have thought he was thinking long-term. I don't think he's thinking long-term enough. Because first of all, just on this basis alone, I think this decision, I'm not saying preventing her from marching was wrong outright. The question, of course, is what exactly are you gaining by preventing her from marching at this point? I understand there's the law and whatever, and she didn't get authorization or permission to march, but what are you gaining by trying to utilize the technicalities of the rule on such an incendiary situation? Because the response on social media, and again, it might be legally wrong, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're losing in the court of public opinion. It doesn't matter because you're harming the legacy of your career, your careers, and the institution that is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And that matters because the trust and confidence in the service is an important component for the service doing its job. So what did you gain by arresting this woman because she had a small group of followers? Again, she ain't leading a million-man march and stopping traffic. What was she doing that necessitated the situation? A man could have a gun. If he's shooting at people, you shoot him. If he just has a gun, you don't shoot him. If he's waving the gun in a threatening manner, if he's pointing it towards people, then yes, you potentially say, I couldn't take the chance. If he's just there in a room with no windows, and he has a gun, and he's unstable, you're not forced to charge into the room and kill him if he cannot actually harm anybody. if there's no actual practical benefit or requirement of you doing so? What is the gain? Because ironically, this might seem like a lesser situation, except for the police service, it potentially is just as bad. Members of the public, whether they are well-informed or not well-informed, it doesn't matter. The court of public opinion is not fair. But then there was another part to this. There was another part to this, and this is where it touches on the second story. The first story, of course, is the ongoing protest action for Joshua Sharmaru's killing and Kaya Seeley's paralysis and subsequent arrest, particularly the last part. But then, and this is the key, the police said two things according to one media house. They said, one, they verified with organizers of the trade union movement. Maybe I should do a quick Google search. Maybe they meant the joint trade union movement. That one word difference is important. But they verified with organizers. Okay. They also said she was at the rear of the procession. Okay. Except, what's interesting is that at the rear of the procession, but the leader of NATUC said it was he that invited Philip. And he, one, condemned the arrest. But also, he said the police action was regrettable, unfortunate, and an affront to democratic freedoms. Again, it doesn't matter if you agree with him or not. It doesn't matter if that is a true account of what's going on, if that opinion is 100% accurate and correct. It's out there. There are going to be people that agree with it. You're losing in the court of public opinion. Period. End of story. Your police in 2026, you are behind the 8 ball. You're not automatically given respect by the consensus of the public. You'll get respect from some of the public on an individual basis. But as an institution, the institution is not automatically respected by society anymore. For better or worse, we import a lot of nonsense. Part of it is certain public perceptions and ideologies, and that includes, to some extent, mistrust for the police. And you're adding fuel to that fire. But the second thing, with regards to Mr. Anisette, is that he said, a direct quote, she was invited by the General Secretary of NATUC, which is me, to participate in the march, which is Michael Anisette. She was with us, right behind me, leading the demonstration when she was arrested. So then the question is, the trade union movement, is it that Mr. Anisette is not involved? Does he not have a say? Is he? And if he's not involved, then how was he part of the procession and legally authorized the march? I do believe he is. So, if he is, then potentially, wouldn't he have a right to invite Alyssa Phillips? And if he's not, well, then how was he not arrested technically, right? Because again, they didn't say joint trade union movement. The report says trade union movement. And he said she was right behind him. Did the police consult? I mean, one would think you have a Labor Day march. Michael Anisette is there. Who did you consult? Random organizer number 52? And again, okay, let's just say all of the dots with regards to technically what is the proper procedure. Ms. Anisette should not have invited her, and she should not have come. What did you gain from arresting her? Because I am fairly certain, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, not only have we heard stories about politicians having a big ego, But I am certain if you have lived long enough, you would have heard stories of police officers having a gigantic ego. And you don't have to be a senior police officer to have a gigantic, unwarranted, undeserved ego. Because again, what was the benefit with regards to law and order? Or you didn't want someone to say, well, how did she march with the labor movement? She's not labor. Like, I understand that. But if you're considering that, did you also consider we could arrest her? How will this look? What are we preventing? Is there any harm that we're stopping? Now, maybe there is, but that's not the justification that was given in the reports. The justification was you are not part of the trade union movement, therefore you cannot march with the trade union movement, except one of the bodies in the trade union movement apparently did invite her. Because now it looks, this is how it looks. It looks as though the police specifically targeted her. That's how it looks. Again, it doesn't matter if it's the truth. The court of public opinion is not fair. You want to defend yourself? You could say all the right things. They're not going to believe you. That's why when the commissioner now wants to come and say, put down the gun, when he wants to say put down the gun, when he wants to say cooperate with us, no one is listening to him. The criminals are saying, if we put down the gun, you'll kill us. We saw what happened to a man with his hands up. Whatever the situation is with Miss Seeley, notwithstanding, that narrative is out there. It has momentum. It's gone viral. It's not going to just end. You could show justification and you could try to fight the narrative and whatever, and eventually it might work. But people will still hold on to their first impressions. People will still hold on to their biases. And at the end of the day, a lot of the biases against the TTPS was created by the misbehavior of officers of the TTPS. By the poor choice of communications by leadership of the TTPS. By a lack of understanding of how to deal with the public and communicate to the public, because there's a lack of proficiency within the country, but also that includes the TTPS. Which is crazy to me, because you have some individuals with a bit more awareness on public communications, but again, you don't have to be a senior officer to have an ego. So then, of course, the question is, what about the senior officers? Are they humble? Most of what we've seen to that is no. The only one who I think one can make an argument of being humble is McDonald Jacobs. Ayla, I'm not sure if you can assess her on that good or bad. And the current commissioner, I don't know. Given how he's framed his arguments in defense of certain situations, I would argue he's tone deaf. Don't know if he's arrogant, but he's definitely tone deaf. Which is, again, you can't treat the public like how you would treat your subordinates. You can't just demand of them to believe you and then, oh, well, they will because you said so. They are not beholden to you. You don't have any sort of authority over them. Not when it comes to the courts of public opinion. You, the Prime Minister, any elected official, anybody, TV personalities, judges, anybody, civic leaders, religious leaders, anybody can fall victim to the court of public opinion, especially if they misspeak. Because how do you reverse that? How do you get people's first impression to be reversed? You have to do something extraordinary when it's this extraordinarily bad. We ain't seen that happening. So now, what's going on? Of course, the police tries to defend the situation. A union leader saying, I invited them, so it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen with this arrest. Because Mr. Anisette is basically saying, this is what he's saying, Labour leaders have engaged a senior counsel to review the events on June 19th. Labour leaders, now maybe he's exaggerating, but the report basically implies he's not saying I am, I alone, me only. He's saying a group of us, not just a group of trade unionists, a group of labor leaders, people who lead trade unions, are looking into this. Why is that important? Because this is, again, I never got to the second story outright. But the second story outright that's connected, this is two stories in one incident, is labor is now pushing back against the system. Because let's not forget, it's not as though the Prime Minister came out and said, we must have compassion and understanding and provide a measured response. No, she condemned the protesters outright in language that, to be quite honest, was unnecessarily harsh and potentially reflecting poorly on her. And here comes one of the biggest trade union leaders in the country basically saying, I stand with Alyssa. And on an issue like this, if you're standing with Alyssa, especially with how our politics are, especially with how our politics is going down right now in real time with regards to the lines in the sand, because the political parties draw the line in the sand, folks. Not all of it is individuals doing so. Political parties draw a line in the sand, and if you want to try to be neutral, you will be labeled and ostracized by both sides. That's why, trust me, when people call me a shill for either party, I chuckle. Because I'll probably, if I wanted to get an open window to either side, that probably ain't gonna happen, right? Because why? Because I treat both equally. That's unfortunately a political taboo. So now when Mr. Anisette is saying these things, unless the UNC gets real smart real quick, given their MO, which most of it is behind the scenes, some of it is speculative, fair enough, I will concede that, but at the end of the day, it's hard for me to assume that the government is going to be happy about this. Not after the Prime Minister came out so strongly against Alyssa Phillips, to the point where she was technically, potentially inaccurate with so many things she said. But, and it goes back to what I said about labor. The agenda of labor and the agenda of the government are two different things that eventually will diverge. They could meet on an issue. They could meet for a moment. They could meet in a limited capacity. Some labor could shake hands and join hands with a political entity. But labor on the whole, what drives them, what fuels them, what they need to accomplish, what their demands are, is not going to be in line with a government, because the government is the employer and labor negotiates against them at the end of the day. At the end of the day. Because think about it. Mr. Anisette said, I invited her. You who have been arrested, you who the Prime Minister has basically condemned, I invite you, walk with me. And then when she was arrested, it's very interesting, police saying, well, we spoke to the organizers, except Ms. Anisette saying, she was right behind me. So now, the big question on the arrest itself is, did the police consult with what is obviously a labor movement leader right there? Did he, because he said he invited her. And he said he condemns the police. Now, did he say it in the moment? Was he given an opportunity to say it in the moment? If he did say it, was he ignored? Now, of course, this doesn't necessarily represent the entirety of the labor movement. But I have been pointing at holes in the situation. Again, the Minister of Finance believes he's brought back respectability to labor negotiations. That is interesting. That's interesting when one major labor leader decides to invite someone that is a direct critic of the state on a highly contentious issue. What kind of message that send? That labor relations between the government and unions are solid? Or that maybe there's room for some differing of opinion? And when he says that they're going to consult senior counsels to review the events, quote, I could assure you that we are engaging a senior counsel to take an overview of all that has happened to advise us as a labor movement how to move forward in this matter. This is not a simple matter. I believe it has some constitutional issues in what transpired. I'm not going to pronounce on it, but we are engaging senior counsel to discuss it, that they will guide us in terms of the constitutionality that we see was breached by the police. There was another report. This one, I'm a little bit more skeptical because I think it might be more based on the reporter's opinions. But at the same time, you know, read the details and assess for yourself. The headline is Labor Movement Split on Full Display in Faizabad. And the report is basically saying, members of the teachers' union booing one union leader while others applauded amid mounting frustrations over delayed wage payments. And I won't be surprised if there truly is a split in the labor movement. We've seen a couple labor union leaders all of a sudden become cabinet ministers, some being the senior minister in their cabinet. And then we see the person promoted to fill their post as a union leader on a campaign trail. And then we see, hell, the government even tried to play political games with the PSA. Let's be real now. They tried to do some kind of negotiation, some of it with public statements, or it was really stupid things that Minister Tanku was saying, right? So I'm assuming they were intentional to give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't contradicting himself. Because otherwise he was contradicting himself when you think about it. And the relationship between the PSA and the government seemingly, while I won't say one more straw the camel's back would break, it's not as though it's cased in concrete and that foundation is unbreakable. No. And that's the PSA. That's the ones that got the 10%. They got the 10%. What about the rest of the union, the labor union movement? Because analysts warn the government, you give them 10%, the expectations now will be 10%. Did the government listen to those warnings? No, because the government always knows, it doesn't matter if it's the PNM or the UNC, people that have newspaper columns, that have PhD and doctor, I don't have these things, so it's fine if you don't listen to what I'm saying. But people with PhD and doctor and masters and whatever else, you know, in front of the name, after the name, you know, people that literally spend all their time professionally on these topics. They basically said, hey, be careful now, because the way how human beings observed behavioral patterns throughout all of history acts is that if you give one section something, the rest of that overall group is going to want the same thing, because that's how we view fairness. And it seems as though the government said, nah, you're wrong. And it's that behavior that PNM had that eventually got them voted out. Not that you need to listen to the academic institutional elites, but rather, when they say obvious things, don't make it obvious that you're ignoring obvious things that aren't just obvious, but also you got the advice. You got someone to speak out on the obvious thing, to highlight the obvious thing, which should have been obvious before they said it. And of course now, then it comes, here's the issue, right? Because something like that should be obvious. You give one child in a classroom something, all the other children's have an expectation for the same thing. I mean, unless you're saying, well, the PSA, they got extra credit with their political campaigning for you, which again, I wonder how ethical that is in the grand scheme of things, but let's not go there. But if there's no actual criteria of merits to base an individual reward on, you give one child something. Let's go to a family. You give one child something for no significant enough reason, because campaigning for you is technically not a significant enough reason. Let's be fair now. I gave the TPP a lot of flack over AudioGate. On principle, this is not that dissimilar. You got a political promise to direct state funds. But no, the PRM are the only ones that are corrupt. So, the obvious thing was, you give one something, you gotta give them all. Everyone will have that expectation. Everybody will feel entitled. You give one child ice cream, where's the ice cream for the other children? You should have known that on your own. You didn't need an industrial relations expert or some university professor to tell you this, or some economist to tell you this. You should have known that on your own. So let's assume that you did. You chose to ignore the obvious. You chose to go in a different direction, knowing full well that you're going against what would be normal, reasonable human expectations. All the while, and that in and of itself is not bad, but when you sell yourself as, when we win, everybody wins, and then you do something that directly contradicts that, it implies that your campaign promises were for the most part a lie. I'm not saying it's a lie, but what I'm saying is, you know, your actions and your words are not in alignment. And this is how it can be interpreted. It can be interpreted, and it probably has been interpreted by people out there, because I've heard these statements. They don't believe the campaign promises. It's a lie. I know somebody who is not a PNM supporter because he said the same things. He said the same things about the PNM. He had the same criticisms when the PNM was in government. The Prime Minister had the whole big thing about the TNTech list and whatever. The moment he saw that she was saying this in Parliament, his opinion was cemented. He didn't need any details. Parliamentary privilege, that's suspicious. This is the pattern of behavior when politicians want a mama guy. He stopped paying attention. So again, the politicians, I think, kind of knows this. They're banking on you and me and everybody else to not necessarily look too closely at the details of what's going on, because it seems as though they underestimate us and think, we'll fool them with the usual same old. But at the end of the day, people adjust. You can't have the same patterns and expect to pull the wool over our eyes the same way every time. And more importantly, let's say you're not trying to lie to us. You're not trying to pull the wool over our eyes. If you had any awareness, if you had any strategic thinking, if you had any proper analysis, you would know, I intend to do good. But if I say it this way, or if I do it in this forum, it's not going to be believed. It's going to be disbelieved. Therefore, I shouldn't do it. Therefore, I should find a different way. Because I need to identify the fact that if I operate in a certain manner where people assume that's how crooked politicians operate, if I now am trying to do right, I can't use the same tools. I can't use the same methods. Which means that whether you agree with me or not, in my opinion, I have an argument of why there's something wrong here. Because if you're trying to mamagai me, you should be doing better. And if you're trying to tell me the truth, you should also be doing better with regards to your public utterances. There's no good reason for the Prime Minister to do what she said with regards to the TNTech list situation and to say it in Parliament in the middle of the mid-year budget review. And that adds on to this whole trade union thing, this whole lack of promises being kept, this whole everybody not winning. And that also includes a small group of people that saw a man get killed with his hands up and a woman paralyzed, being arrested and charged without any amount of transparency. For better or worse, regardless of her innocence and guilt, it has alarmed a large cross-section or large enough of the public. And politically, if this is how you want to end your government, because I don't know if the public will tolerate 4 more years of things like this. Maybe it's not enough of the public disagrees, but at what point can that hold strain? I don't know, because I am fairly certain when I started talking points, here's the thing, and this is not the most accurate argument, so take this with a grain of salt, with a huge grain of salt, because this is very anecdotal in a way. In a way it's not, but in a way it is. When I first started talking point, I wasn't speaking about the PNM like this. I was speaking about the PNM like this by year 8, year 9, towards the end. Not like this when I first started talking about it, which admittedly is something like year 6 or year 5, but still. How do we get here? Because we have said that the PNM was arrogant, was defiant, was overly defensive, were bullies, etc., etc. We've seen them act in that manner. We've seen them make those mistakes. Why is the new government so determined to act in the same way? That's all I'm saying. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome the media ambassador. Stay tuned.
Trinidad and Tobago, get ready for a musical explosion of freedom, culture, and pure steel band magic.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth bands.
Get ready for generations of steel.
The ultimate celebration of our national instrument.
Featuring 5 of the nation's super bands, plus their talented youth band.
Experience the power and passion of Desperados,
Shell Invaders,
Massey Trinidad All-Stars,
First Citizens Supernovas,
and the pride of the South, Fun Play. Saturday, July 11th
at the iconic Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah.
And hear this one. First 800 tickets sold. Admit 2 buses on 1 ticket if bought by Saturday, June 27th.
Presented by Super Panman, Dingleston and Friends.
Supported by ICNTT 6, The Express Newspaper, and I-95.5 FM.
Generations of Steel, the biggest pan event after Panorama.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan, and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me.
respond to
me
you?
how you would respond to me.
The first question I'd ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
I'm back here talking about the WESND Content Capital, and I am joined, as always, by our media ambassador. And I need to say this because this whole thing with the Cassidy arrest and the protests, remember I always say it's not about if she's innocent or guilty or if the protests are justified or not. It's the public perception on the situation and the, at the very least, perceived lack of transparency. And I just want to remind people, in the heat of the moment, because there are going to be strong emotions on topics like this, and yes, they might not always be fair, and there might be strong emotions because the people believe that the situation is fair. All of that is true. The media ambassadors cannot speak for their bosses or government policy, and they're not responsible for making decisions. They're just here to communicate with us. Just want to put that out there in case people want to potentially ask certain pointed questions that the media ambassador cannot answer. Because we have him here today, of course, acting ASP Arun. Welcome back.
Good day, Sean. Thanks for having me. Good day to your viewers and your colleagues and yourself. Well, of course, you know, we saw the Labor Day procession engaging public attention now with respect to the arrest of the social activist.
Mm-hmm. She was charged, by the way.
Yeah, she was. I have the charges here. She and someone else were charged for various offenses.
Her mother, I believe.
Okay.
At least according to one report, which is in line with past events, because I believe they were both charged in previous, at least one previous situation as well.
Well, if I could just read out the charges.
Go ahead.
Right. The reason I want to read out the charges is to get into the topic. One, being a leader of a march and failing to call on such march to disperse. Right. Disorderly behavior and resisting arrest. The second person was charged for being a participant in an illegal procession. Oh, sorry, being present at a march and failing to disperse. Obstructing a police officer and resisting arrest. So what you have here is persons who did not. So, according to the information I have, is that there was permission granted for the Labor Day March procession to this trade union and whatnot, the trade union movement. And the young lady, being part of a social activist group, being a social activist in charge of a particular group of persons, did not have said permission to participate in any procession, march, or protest. And they were called upon to disperse by members of the TTPS, and they failed to do so, and they were charged. And apparently they resisted arrest and obstructed, so they were charged.
And I guess this goes back to what we said, at the end of the day, look, comply.
Yeah, so we spoke about the SOE before, you know, under a state of emergency, your rights have been basically suspended to some extent, if not to a great extent. And you don't have the same right as a normal individual in a normal jurisdiction. So, under the SOE, a police officer without probable or reasonable cause stops you and searches you. SOE,
yeah,
he has the right to do that without reasonable or probable cause. And then with respect to marches, when you could have had a peaceful march and inform the Commissioner of Police, you must now inform the Commissioner of Police and you must get permission to participate or conduct this march. So in this case, apparently the social activist group did not have the needed permission. And when called upon to disperse, so they were warned, and they failed to disperse.
So now I guess this might be potentially, I don't know if there's anything in precedent before this where one of the union leaders said he invited her.
Right.
Right? Now, this is where I'll be devil's advocate. Is that enough? Right? Because technically, you're not part of the labor movement. You're not there technically to march for labor. Right. You're there to march for something else. But you were invited by someone who apparently has been authorized to be there and is one of the organizers. So there's a lot of, you could argue there's subjectivity in some of the things, right? If you don't want to draw conclusions immediately. But Mr. Anisette, at the very least, seems to be looking to push this situation further. And I guess at the end of the day, I disagree with the arrest because I didn't see the value of it. I understand there's the whole, you need to enforce all laws, but hey, it's not as though we're locking up PH taxi drivers right now.
Right.
So is this the best starting point to enact that policy? Because it's not like, you know, well, Friday was the day, so we're going to enforce all laws on Friday. All the PH taxi drivers were rounded up over the weekend, or all speeding got tickets. Or, you know, the Eastern Main Road was cleared of parked cars. So it's unfortunately a tricky situation, because I have seen people's social media status on this arrest already.
It might seem like a tricky situation, but when you look at when you look at the example of the PH drivers, if some PH drivers have permission to work taxi and some don't, then who you arrest? So, or who you deal with? So this is almost the same case where, so you have people with permission to march, then why not apply to protest? Why didn't the social activist group apply for permission to the same commissioner of police who granted the permission to the marchers?
That's a good question.
So, you know,
the problem, I'm not saying the problem with that question is that the speculation is right. I'm saying the problem with that question is because it's emotionally charged, people will, with their biases, speculate, oh, well, how do we not know, or how do we know that she didn't apply and was denied, you know? Whereas it hasn't come up. We don't know if she did or not, but you could easily see where this is the unfortunate reality of situations like this, where the public will have a first impression, and it's an emotionally charged one, so that's going to ride a wave of momentum.
Yeah.
So they're going to want to find ways to continue to disbelieve whatever the police says, which I find is a very tricky situation now, because it goes back to, well, you kind of need to have trust and confidence in the police, for you all to do your jobs.
Right.
You all need us to cooperate.
Right, and then when you have faced, as a police officer or a group of police officers faced with emotionally charged situations, like in this case, and then you have people behave in a particular way in an emotionally charged situation, you have to make a decision. And sometimes the decision may not be to, you know, hit them on the wrist, slap them on the wrist and tell them, you know, fix up. They did call upon them to disperse. In my view, that's a warning. And they failed to do so because one of the charges indicates failing to disperse. So, I mean, you weren't granted permission. You behaved or you operated in a particular way, separate from what the permission was granted for. So, I wasn't there, so I'm not too familiar with exactly what was being said in that domain, in that public situation. If she had indicated her beliefs or her opinions in relation to a particular subject, as opposed to Labor Day normal processions. So Labor Day processions normally cater to the working class and whatnot, right? So she may have gone in a different direction. She may, I'm just speculating here, she may have said certain things indicating her disgust or her opinion in relation to police officers, or how the situation with Joshua Samaru had unfolded and whatnot. So that would be separate to the permission granted. So the permission granted would have been for trade union movement topics. You understand? So now you're coming, so is it that you're trying to hijack the permission granted to the lawful marchers in relation to labor stuff, as opposed to what you're trying to say, and then, you know, you're trying to hijack, you wasn't granted permission for that. So.
I mean, that is a valid point. And then what makes that very subjective or murky is the fact that, at least in hindsight or post the events, publicly someone said, well, I invited her, right? Someone who we assume had the authority to do so.
Well, he may not have had that authority, yeah.
Right,
so,
in an official capacity.
Again, it's going to unfold in the court. At the end of the day, the situation with the Joshua Samaru case is that Kaya Seeley has been charged, right? She was taken before the court, and she will have her day in court. And before her day in court, she will be given disclosure. She will be given all the evidence the police has. The police is going to say, listen, this is all the evidence we have against you. She can make it public. She can make it public. She doesn't have to. She could go to court and say, fight the case or whatever, or just stand there and plead not guilty and let the prosecution make a case against her, and she has the right to remain silent. She doesn't have to defend herself, or she could defend herself, right? At the end of the day, and she could come out and before the case arrives on the data hearing and say, listen, this is what the police has against me. And public could say, well, that's rubbish, or, you know, where did Mr. Gaspard go wrong here, and whatnot. And that could be discussed in the public domain even before the data trial, right? All this could unfold in a particular way. Or you could just go to court, it could be heard, and she could be found not guilty and whatnot, and it could unfold that way. And until then, the situation with this as well will unfold before the court.
Now, here's the thing, and I wonder to what extent this has been properly identified, because the problem is, I think it's a mistake in this country to view a lack of public outcry, meaning that the public is okay with what's going on.
Right, right.
Because we basically saw not little to no protests for the PNM, and they got dropped like a bad habit in the election, right? And I think, wow, I'll just say this. I don't think, if you're Miss Phillips or part of a group protesting, I think you shouldn't be surprised if you get arrested.
You should expect to be arrested.
You should expect to be arrested,
because that's the consequence if you don't have permission.
But not just that. It's also if you believe that you're being suppressed, if you believe that you're being treated unfairly, right? Whether you are or not, you shouldn't be surprised then to be arrested, right?
And furthermore, Sean, even if you were granted permission by the Commissioner of Police to be part and parcel of the protest or to have a march or whatever, for whatever reason, and for some reason the police in charge decides to call on you to disperse, you have to disperse.
Right.
Right?
Now, but this is why I say you shouldn't be surprised. You go, and we've said this before, you go into the situation knowing you're going to be arrested. If that's what your conviction says to do, fine.
Fine.
No issue with, I personally don't have an issue with that. You deal with the legal consequences.
Yeah.
You wanna technically make a statement in a strong way.
Yeah.
Right? All right, that's fine. But regardless of how worthy your cause is, at some point you still technically have to face the legal consequence. That's what makes the action strong. Getting away with it for free doesn't. Having no skin in the game, at times, that's not a strong position, right? Mandela, his situation was strong because he was arrested and he stayed in prison for however long. Same thing with Gandhi, I believe, right?
Years.
Right. So there is that. But I think what happens is there are a lot of people who they don't want to necessarily run afoul to the law.
Right.
And we have this thing with Trimegonians, they don't want to be involved in general. In part, that's you could argue that might be the chicken or the egg at the start of the equation, where the public didn't want to give the police information. That's how it started, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be involved. We don't want to see this. We don't want to see that, right? So, but that doesn't mean they're not feeling a certain way.
Right.
And the thing is, and this is the problem, at least in media, if media has a bad story, you could correct it, you can make a correction at a later date, but that correction is usually not effective because the ship sailed, right? You could resolve this situation properly at a later date, but the public sentiment is probably not going to go away. And people will probably say, oh, so that's what happened. They might still not want to believe it. Or even if they do believe it, the point is that that emotional response is still there in the back of their mind. And it is unfortunate that we are in the situation we're in because ironically, I think this only fuels the speculation that, well, on some level, indirectly, I think the arrests are suppressing public protests on the matter, whether the protests can be done legally or not. And it's fueling that perception that Ms. Phillips is being targeted. I don't know if you could pull up the second comment, because we just got this not too long before you came in, and it speaks to, again, it's not whether or not the commenter is correct. It's about what the commenter thinks and its feeling. Good day. The membership of trade unions are made up of workers who identify with various political parties. Oh, sorry, not that comment, the one before. I believe Alyssa Phillips is targeted for arrests with dozens of riot police in attendance at the Labor Day marches, precisely because they were hoping for a violent response from the marchers. Thankfully, the marchers didn't fall for the bait. Why else did all the riot police leave after her arrest? And again, like I said, it's not whether the commenter has all the facts correct.
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, with conversations before, riot police will be there for certain events just cause, right?
Yeah.
I think we have this perception of riot police in that they're only there to act.
Right.
Not that they're there, because think about it. To be there to act, you have to be there in advance.
Yeah.
And you don't know if you're going to be needed or not, but people just see this as a show of force to suppress.
Right.
Not necessarily the case in this situation, correct?
Right, correct, yeah. Yeah, so, well, I mean, when you look at the comment, the commenter, they're talking about they believe she was targeted, right? I don't think I don't think the police targeted her. She broke the law, if you understand. So there were a number of persons there, and I don't think the protesters, what they call the marchers from the trade union, maybe they weren't part and parcel of her movement and her opinions and whatnot. Maybe they were there in solidarity in relation to Labor Day events, and not necessarily what she was protesting or what she was there for. So therefore, hence the reason they may not have participated in obstructing the police or becoming violent, as the
well, the commenter might have been referring to just Miss Phillips' group.
Yeah. Oh.
Right? Okay. Maybe, because to be fair, it's not like it was a big group, so you might be right? Yeah. I assume the commenter would have been speaking after reading some of the reports, if not all.
Yeah.
But I found that point to be the one where I understand why the commenter made that point, but the riot police wasn't just there
for them
in case Alyssa Phillips showed up. Because ironically,
it's a normal protocol in relation to Labor Day.
But let's go with the assumption that she didn't apply.
Right.
Right, let's go with that assumption. Then how would the police know that she would be there?
They didn't know she was going to be there.
I mean, listen, and then people speculate, ooh, the intelligence, they got intelligence, they tap a phone, or whatever, right?
So the riot police wasn't there for this potential protest. They were there because it's Labor Day celebrations and a march, and therefore we had riot police around.
Yeah, this is
normal protocol, yeah.
So,
and then somebody protested, called upon to disperse. They refused, and they were arrested. Apparently, the other members of our group did not obstruct the police.
Yeah.
Apparently, they dispersed. I think from the videos I looked at, it appears that even her own colleagues tried to get her to abide by the instructions of the police.
I mean, listen, I commend her for not backing down. It's just a situation where you have to know what you're doing.
She seems convicted.
Right? Like, you can be upset at the situation, but on some level, when I say the situation, I don't mean what's going on in the immediate, but the reason why you're protesting. You could have strong emotions for that. You could be upset about that. But on some level, the matter at hand, the police are in front of you telling you to comply. Again, I don't have an issue if you want to disobey police and get arrested in the moment, right? But on some level, my only concern is because at some point now, if she feels victimized and if she's upset about the arrest, then is that going to further emotionally charge the situation, and then either you get escalation from her, someone connected to her, or someone not connected to her at all, but sees the situation and decides to act on their own, which again is all part of the dynamic risk of a protest.
Yeah, and I think that they also have options. At the end of the day, it seems that this appeared to be a hijacking of the trade union movement. To me, there were options available where if you want to protest or if you want to talk about the situation that you're concerned about, you could use media, regular media, social media. You could do your own interviews. You could send it out on social media. You could go to the traditional media outlets, including WSN, and have an interview with the host and speak about the situation you're going through?
I can't speak as to why she's decided on the course of action she is.
Yeah, because you're seeing a lot more public expressions of your opinion or your beliefs, and you're trying to generate this coverage in a public domain when you have options available.
I think the issue is because we don't, in our culture, we don't do these things.
Yeah.
We don't know what's the best strategy, what combination of platforms, right? So again, I don't know why she's decided on this course of action, but I suspect it's a wider issue of we don't know where to go and how to do it. Although I agree with you, you would think, hey, are you trying to get interviews on media houses? I have not reached out, and I don't think she's reached out to us. Right? I don't know if other shows of ours have reached out to her. We do have Arim on the line. Caller, good morning. You on there?
Good morning, DST also. Happy Father's Day, the latest Father's Day to you all. Yes, Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
I just want to say one thing. This country needs lots of prayers. No matter what you do in this country, it will have some for and some against. We need prayers. We need a cleaning up. This country needs a purge. It needs a full, big purge. You understand? That is all I have to say this morning. I'm on my way out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thanks. The problem with a purge is they have too many people content with the status quo. Right? For better or worse. It's amazing how a lot of people don't mind watching the world burn around them as long as they could profit.
Yeah.
Right? And you see that throughout history in different ways. We have Shogunas on the line, and I think we'll take the last comment because it's connected to what we're talking about. Shogunas, good morning. You on here?
Yeah, good morning, Sean. Good morning to BSP there.
Morning.
Hi, good day.
Yeah. I watching this whole situation. I'm very deep concerned. I was part of the labor movement, OWTU to be specific. I was a general council member for over 13 years. And I participated in Labor Day celebration for over 30-something years. And I never once saw any disorderly conduct or misbehavior or anything in a Labor Day celebration. I don't know if you gentlemen ever seen that. I remember going to Labor Day celebration. We'll march from Charlie King Junction, go to the Lady Reed, walk down to Aquacat Junction all the way there, and the police visibility was almost zero.
Okay.
Almost zero. What I saw there, not there. So what the ESP saying there, that's not a normal thing to see police with police and all kind of things in Labor Day marches. You don't see that.
But
you don't see that.
But have you ever attended?
The thing is not trade union day. The thing is not trade union day, you know. It's Labor Day. It's police day, you know. Right? I saw in the past, I haven't gone to Labor Day for the past maybe 10, 15 years. And was a time for the public to bring, did you know that the teachers, I remember the teachers was trying to apply for recognition and so on. They didn't get no recognition and stuff. And they came in the Labor Day. That's how tutor and they was born. They weren't members of no trade union or nothing. I remember the domestic workers, a woman named Clotilde Walcott. They wasn't getting recognition. She came in the Labor Day protest. Of recent vintage, we had the Scrap Iron Dealers Association. They was in Labor Day. And you hearing on Labor Day platform, right? I hearing Roger and them talking about Color Hat must go, and Rowdy must go, and this one must go, and all kind of different issues that have to do with labor. Right? So all of a sudden now we having this kind of thing. Right? So in the past we used to see Pfizer bad. People just say, "God, I'm going down Labor Day." There's not a part of no union or nothing, you know. But that's the day for labor, and they feel to be part of it. Now you're telling me that I get permission and authorization to take part in Labor Day celebration.
Yeah, so under the...
That making sense?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
because of...
Yes,
okay,
so,
Sean.
yeah. So what I want to find out from you is...
I think he
oh, well, when I said the protocol with the riot police it was normal, it's because of the SOE. It is because of the SOE we would have the riot police out there. So anywhere there would be marches. So if you have it in front of the DPP office, if you have it in front of the police station, police administration building, if you're having any march or protest in any form of fashion throughout the country now, during an SOE, you would have riot police.
Leadership is a tricky thing. When you have a state of emergency, when people don't feel like they're under state of emergency, it then seems very weird to then say, hey, but we technically have all these extra measures. Don't forget about them because of state of emergency. On some level, the messaging has been set up to cause this failure because somebody thought, hey, we'll have an SOE, but no curfews, I know this, I know that, and you won't feel a thing until you do. We have another Rima, I believe, on the line. Caller, good morning.
Sure, Michael Small, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to you and your guests. I saw two things today that disrupted my equilibrium. I really couldn't function. The first one was a snippet of the Commissioner of Police shaking Miss Phillips' hand about 10 or 15 minutes before she was arrested. It brought back memories of Judas. The second one was a gentleman who had on the jersey. Mark, I think, is no discrimination, racism, and injustice on Labor Day, and the police asked him to take it off. Now, what I would like to ask your host, right? And that is why in the earlies, I had told you, one, I didn't really, I'm not for this open coming out and protesting and demonstration by that group. It had other ways to do it. And secondly, the second thing I told you before, the Nazis killed millions. They caused billions of dollars in damage. They set back Europe almost 50 years. And at the end of the war, all of them were arrested. Most of them were arrested who didn't get away or died. And they were tried and hanged. And that leads me to what I have to say to Mr. Aaron this morning. Now it's 7,000 of you all strong, right? That is the total police force. What I wouldn't like to see is, let me say 75,000 people assemble on Port of Spain to march. What are you all going to do? Fire on them, the 7,000 only? Because this is where it's heading, you know. Because what we're watching at and what you all not understanding, and I want you all to understand this today, is not the fact that Joshua Samaru and the girl shot at the police or whether they didn't shoot at the police at all. The fact of the matter is that the gentleman put his hands up and he was summarily shot. So if the Nazis could kill millions and cause billions and they were arrested and charged, why not he? Because your job is to take somebody before a lawful court of jurisprudence and let them be tried for whatever perceived wrong that they committed. The police service should not be judge, jury, and executioner. They are enforcers of the law. They have parameters to work within. They are not executors of the law. There's not the prison service. There's not the hangman. And until you all could understand that, because what the public is saying is that should anybody put their hands up in the air, they could be summarily shot. And so I surrender. The next stupid thing too is this resisting arrest charge. I literally see that the mother was literally, well, Ada said she was moving faster than she could normally move. So you had to say she was dragged. She wasn't physically dragged on the ground. But she was escorted by about 20 officers. How was she resisting arrest? It's time that this nonsensical charge, we shell it out and give us a proper explanation as to what that is. Because that and obscene language is, and what, this thing with locking up police officer during the lawful execution of his duties.
Obstruction.
I would agree there are times when people do it. But this is going too far. And instead of you all focusing your energies on solving crime, running and the drug pushing, you see you all fighting down somebody who is talking for the truth. And for those who want to say it's not politics, I would end by saying this. After the march in Toronto that was disbanded, poor superintendent there, oh gosh, I'm sorry for him. You all came up with a list of places where you cannot march. And the ironic part about it is that the UNC was formed out of the belly of labor. Them born in protest, them know about marching. They march and say all kind of thing about Kid Rowley, and he never did this. And he's been demonized. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, brother.
I am just sorry because what I am seeing is 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 people in Port of Spain. And your 7,000 squad of riot police getting swamped and men running home. It's not a nice thing to say, but that is what I am seeing because I don't think we could take 4 more years of this. Good program as usual, Sean Michael Small. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. A lot to say, and I'll just say this. I'm not, if 70,000 trainees decide to protest, regardless of what it's for, I'll be impressed that 70,000 decided to come out. One of the reasons why the Nazis rose to power is that people did not protest. And when it became obvious that they needed to protest, it was too late. Because nobody wanted to get shot. And that's the slippery slope, right? I'm not saying we're going to get there, but that extreme example could still teach us some things, but it's not a direct comparison by any means. Let me just say that. We have Claxon Bay waiting. I don't know if we still have the call. And then, Claxon Bay, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning. Sorry for the wait, caller.
Yeah. Hi, good morning, Sean, and to the officer there.
Good day.
Right? You see what that guy just said there? That is happening throughout Trinidad. And really and truly, the police service, the judiciary, the government, and they're making a whole mess of this situation. First, let me say, Sean, you and Mr. Shearer last week, well, they was on top of the game. Don't mind when they take no call, but they started to talk the truth. And you see, the truth is what will save this government from all this dotishness what taking place here today. If Miss Kamala Bissessa will come out and face the people and tell them the truth, we will have all this demonization and thing what going on, The other thing we talk about democracy, and we talk about the public. The union and them having a march and they say the public is invited. Who is the public? Once he is national, you is able to go to that march without, and if you want to speak, you could speak because that's throughout the years. So how come all of a sudden these things change? What is democracy? And what is, when you say the public are invited, what do you all really mean? It seems like you all now changing the goalposts. You understand? Now that you all is in power, it seems like everything changed. You can't say this, you can't say that, you can't march, and before the same Prime Minister, they bring people up in the higher. They didn't even know what they come there for. They say they're supporting the Prime Minister. But you see, when you have people who don't have common sense, who only believe in race and religion, that is the dotishness what's taking place in this country, These people who believe in race and religion cannot see nothing, and have this country going down the wrong way, And I remember the late Patrick Manning said, he said, don't ever believe that Trinidad and Tobago cannot come like Guyana, You remember what happened in Guyana? And it seems that what the people seeing out here is like people want to send us down that road, which is not going to be a nice road. And I think the officer there, you, Sean, You, Mr. Sharon, or who talk and was telling the people the truth, well, you need to come out and start telling the people the truth and stop trying to make excuses for this foolishness that is happening in this country, because it wouldn't end good. A lot of innocent people will, it wouldn't end good. So let me fix it now before it reaches too late. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I don't know if you want to respond to anything.
Yeah, well, the second to last caller there mentioned
yes,
the strength of the police service in relation to our great march. There is always the potential to bring out the army, other law enforcement agencies.
You realize you're not helping public sentiment. I know that is true. I thought about it, right? But still, even if you bring out the army and the Coast Guard, how much?
You'll have martial law declared and it'll take a different turn, right? So there's cautionary measures in place for these potential issues.
Dare I say, at that point,
is that something we want?
Can the political parties be ensured? Because we always say police, soldiers, Coast Guardsmen, they come from society.
Right.
Depending on sentiments, is it that the sense of duty, like I understand the sense of duty, but then the problem is, unfortunately, these things are subjective.
Yeah.
Right? Because at what point now does an agent of the state, a paramilitary agent of the state, also have to abide by the fact that, look, just because it's an order doesn't make it morally and legally binding and correct, right? Of course, the flip side to that is you can't have every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the army and the police service questioning their superiors on everything. So, because the subjectivity also, I think, applies to the obstruction and resisting charges. It's not, I understand that the caller doesn't like the situation, but these anecdotal situations, I don't think is enough to say we should scrap those laws altogether.
The court will always deliberate. There's always case law that there is always case law that always support and refutes the power of arrest, resisting arrest, and these kind of cases. It will unfold in the court if they resisted arrest. Resisting arrest doesn't mean that you pulled away, and it could be by means of your words and actions.
Right.
So you could resist by saying, listen, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You understand? It's as simple as that. But the court will determine if it met the standard of law, if it met that standard of you should be convicted for it, right? He also mentioned, well, beside his strength and the issue of obstruction and obscene language and obstruction of police officer, he mentioned something else, and he mentioned the case with Mr. Samaru.
Right.
And he has to also understand that the police did not charge of their own free will. They consulted with the DPP. The DPP saw it fit that somebody be charged.
But I think it's not so much Kaya Sealy. Yeah. I think it's the optics. And
right. So he said, he spoke about the footage.
Surrender.
Right.
Yeah.
He spoke about the footage. And we didn't see everything. We didn't see from the officer's perspective and what evidence. We don't even know, I don't even know what evidence was produced to the DPP and the public doesn't have all the evidence. And that's what I'm saying. Sometime Ms. Sealy is going to be given all the evidence. Whether she makes it public or not is up to her.
You see, I guess this comes back down to where I say all the time, look, the court of public opinion is not fair.
Yeah.
Right? And look, you and I,
right,
in a lesser capacity, but you are on TV at least once a week. I'm on TV at least 5 times a week on most weeks. We are also subject to the court of public opinion. The caller said call in, they have their own, because listen, I could think it's as unfair as I want, but at the end of the day, I can't quarrel and complain and bash the callers. At least I could disagree with their position and to some extent sarcastically bash the situation of, oh, well, you're a UNC plant or you're a PNM stool, right?
Yeah.
I could do that. But on some level, I have to understand they have these perceptions.
I understand their perceptions.
Right.
But as a police officer and as a media ambassador, I can only state facts.
Yes.
So the fact is that somebody saw it fit to charge Kaya Sealy, if that's a Kaya.
Yeah.
Right. first for evidence brought before them.
But
and I'm not privy to it.
I think what the
Neither is the caller. I understand the perception.
But he touched on something which is only in perception, which is you see a man getting shot with his hands up,
right?
And then you're telling criminals, put down the guns and surrender. It's like, I don't know if...
No, but was there crossfire,
psychologically...
Sean? Was there crossfire? Was the officer afraid from his perspective?
I don't...
Would you footage in show?
The problem is, I don't... The truth of that doesn't matter for the perspective.
I understand the perception. I understand the perception.
And unfortunately, you could argue that perception has legs and it's rolling downhill. And at this point, it's really hard to reverse that. Right? It's really hard.
Well, I'm hoping that whatever is the truth comes out, whether the officer should be.
My fear is that the truth will come out, but by then it'll be too late.
Right.
By then, even if the situation dies down, the sentiment will still be under the surface there bubbling.
You know, hopefully there will be a speedy trial, you know, and all the evidence.
That's the problem. Like everything you say with regards to the courts handling it is technically correct. But then what compounds the situation, the fact that it's so slow, the judiciary, and that really makes it really bad, because if the truth comes out 10 years from now, it's really going to have little impact to counteract what the public sentiment is, you know, now all the way till then. We have Shagon on the line. Caller, good morning, you're on here.
Good morning again, Sean.
Morning.
Right? I just have to interject again, right? It's with a heavy heart and so on that I try to contribute to this program. Right? Now, ACP Arjun, we're trying to make this issue about the Joshua Samaru incident and all kind of stuff. That is only one in a series of incidents, you know. And it's not even just government fault. They inherited that. This situation going on since it started in the last years, like PNM coming up, where the public is feeling downtrodden and oppressed and so on. The Joshua Samaru is just a latest incident of this whole thing. And when you speak in the public, we have a police service. We were making a contribution. It's just a cautionary tale, you know, to show you what could happen, that cautionary tale. And you're not doing it no good by smirking and saying, well, you know, we can always call out the army.
No, but to be fair...
In 20 cases, that's civilian law. You know, that's civilian law. If civilian law take over, brother, right? What happened in Haiti? What happened in Somalia? And all them places and stuff like that.
Well,
right? So we gotta be cautious, nothing feel it's a cautionary tale, trying to and show you where you think it end up.
No, that's
right?
Is that
so
factual?
stop this arrogance and this all kind of
No,
thing and this kind of mindset and stuff.
I understand where you're coming from, but I could what's the word? I could guarantee you ASP Arun didn't mean it that way.
No, it's a factual statement.
It was almost, I think, you could argue partially a nervous chuckle because he kind of knows how it's going to come across. And that's why I also had a chuckle at it too, because there was a case of this, we both knew that this is the next step. If the police are not enough, they'll bring in the defense force. But we kind of also know that has further implications down the line. But I understand why you have that perception, right?
I ain't seen that he do it with no malice and thing, you know. I've been listening for a little while now. He seems to be a good guy and so on, but he just had to toe the line on some. You remember when you speak on national TV, right? You have to be cautious and guarded in what you say and how you come across, right? Right, you know.
All right, caller. Thank you. Well, hold on. You have another point?
No.
Okay.
I just saying that there's we're trying to come to a consensus or something here and try to bring back the thing in order. So we have to be, when I guess, very cautious in how they come across. Nobody don't want to go down that road. We want a peaceful country, everybody live and get justice and fair play and everybody live nice and peaceful. Right? So lock down and listen.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
So I might know this if I can add.
Yeah.
That the fact is that if it does reach us, this is what will happen, doesn't mean it will work out in the TTPS favor.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it will work out in anybody's favor, including the government.
Yeah.
Because when martial law is implemented, it's done at the disposal of the president. So it's not the government, it's the president will call out the army because she's in charge of the army.
Yes.
Of course, right? Her Excellency is in charge of the army. So all I'm saying from the callers, he wanted to know what the TTPS would do. And I'm just stating factually that if it is that 75,000 people decide to protest and the TTPS can't handle it, then the martial law will be implemented. I smirk because it doesn't mean it will work out in favor of us.
Yeah, like that's why I said I was going to say it because I know that it's like, this is not a great option.
No, it isn't. It's the worst option. It's actually the worst thing we could do. But I smoked because I knew it wouldn't.
Right.
It's not going to work out.
I think this is ironically an example in real time of how public perception can be.
Yeah.
Because at the end, because listen, Cole, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But I actually personally have no issue with what ASP Arun said and how he said it. In part because you can't always be super serious. And also, if you're guarded all the time, you run the risk, ironically, of making some of the mistakes that politicians make when they want to say nothing, right? Because then the public is left to speculate. So if ASP Arun said nothing, then that sentiment of what happens when 70,000 protesters come on the scene, what is he going to do? That's left hanging.
Yeah.
It's technically not answered. Now, the answer might not necessarily be, puts the issue to rest, but the point is there is an answer. And for the sake of the conversation, I would argue, it's good to provide the answer of what comes next.
It's a conversation, we're trying to clear up as much issues as possible when people make it, because that call I made about 3 or 4 points, right? Yeah. Including, the events surrounding the death of Joshua Samaru. So.
But at the same time, it's like, and this is why when I say the court of public opinion is not fair, it's not good to condemn the public.
Yeah.
It's the reality of they're going to have different perspectives and motivations and viewpoints, and the speaker can't control how they're being perceived, right? And so he's right in the sense of you do have to be careful, but the point I'm making is you can't be too careful. But this is to show how that works out, right? How there's no malice involved on either side. It just two different perspectives come at loggerheads in the moment. Now scale that up. You have a population on one side and all of the public sector, including the police and the government on the other side. You could get a lot more complex in these issues.
Yeah, I mean, we hope that it doesn't reach to that. We don't go out there hoping to arrest people for voicing their opinion and protesting and whatnot. But when the law is broken, I mean, we make a decision. Sometimes not the best decision. And again, what determines our decision being the best decision or not is the courts.
Yeah, I think this comes back down to a lack of consistency.
Right.
I mean, think about it, right? One of the ways that you lose young men in any sort of mentorship, social program, guidance, counseling is inconsistency. And with a population, especially when we didn't necessarily get an answer, well, how they could protest that counselor across the floor? How the UNT could protest? But now, granted, I know that it's not necessarily that simple, but if you want to, as an authority, give a simple message, then you have to be able to figure out what is your answer to seemingly simple yet secretly complex questions.
Yeah.
Because technically speaking, them protesting a councillor in some random street is not quite the same as going to the DPP's office and potentially getting too close to the DPP's office or the Forensic Science Center, stuff like that, as you've outlined before. But
I mean, to me, the TTPS hasn't gotten it right 100% as yet. To me, we're working our way towards that. As things unfold, as society develops, we're going to get it right one day. And as you say, consistency is key. Hopefully, we'll get that consistency there. Like when you look at even how we treat members of the public, you see the inconsistency based on your brought up. If we could use that word. How you were brought up as an individual, and you enter into the TTPS, and the TTPS has has what they call standards and operating procedures.
Well, not just that, because the limits of resisting arrest and obstructing police, we think it has to be some grand struggle.
No.
It doesn't have to be, and I guess part of it is also public's misconception of what the law technically is.
So like, okay, like, so you're given a ticket to, let me say, a driver, and his spouse is in his seat next to him, arguing. That could amount to obstruction.
Right.
And it's only when the officer charges that person for perceived obstruction, then the court will say, yes, it was obstruction, or no, that's not obstruction.
Now, my interpretation of it is you have to leave it that open, because one person quarreling might be a different situation with another person quarreling, and you might have situations where the quarreling was obstructing because there's more circumstances and detail, right?
I remember charging a lady for obstruction, and the court, because we had arrested her daughter for, I think it was disorderly behavior and whatnot, and we charged the, I charged the, was it me? But we charged her mother for obstruction, because the mother came and attacked us and whatnot, and began quarreling. And the judge was like, no, this is not obstruction. This is not mother seeking the welfare of her child. So she was just inquiring what's going on with the child. You understand why it is that we're arresting the child and whatnot. Now, in my opinion, she was obstructing.
Right.
Because she was blocking us from arresting her daughter. Her daughter was an adult, nonetheless.
Right.
But, you know, the court said, no, this is somebody inquiring into the welfare of the child. Nonetheless, they were an adult. This was their business. So they were entitled to find out about it. So, you know, so what the police might perceive about obstruction might end up in the court as being not being obstruction.
Yeah, I guess the Achilles heel is how long it took courts take. All right, let's try and get the rest of the comments out. Good day. Is Labor Day marches officially recognized only for unions, or was it recognized as a local alternative to the International May Day celebrations? My understanding is, although organized by the unions, it is a day to recognize the struggles of workers and workers' contributions to society. Thus, all workers are entitled to attend and free to express themselves. I think this goes on to what Shagona said in his first call with regards to you had the teachers' union that didn't have a union.
And it's open. He said members of the public were invited.
It's open to members of the public. And even the current political party that makes up the government was born from the labor movement. The one caveat to that is you could trace all of those things back kind of indirectly to labor, whereas this is protesting police and criminal proceedings. So it's not quite the same, but then again, it just adds more to the gray area and the subjectivity and the questions of, you know, what is appropriate or not.
Yeah, and again, it will unfold in the court, because he did mention that, you know, it was teachers,
scrap iron dealers.
Yeah, scrap iron dealers and whatnot. And I think that they protested in relation to labor-oriented stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Whether they wanted to form a union or what have you.
Yeah, as opposed to maybe what what's her name, Phillips may have done.
Yes.
Right? So again, I wasn't there, but the police would have found it to be a protest outside the purview of the trade union movement.
That's what makes it tricky, because she was invited, but should she have been invited? But then there's an open invitation. Should there be limitations? Right? Is it only for the unions that apply? Again, what is the labor movement?
And then again, also taking into consideration the permission was granted for a particular purpose. Again, it could be argued that it wasn't labor-oriented.
Here's the crazy thing. I'm not saying I'm a judge, but a judge could say, well, the history of the event is not strictly limited to the permissions granted on the piece of paper given out by the commissioner.
Yeah.
You know? So now, again, it's more gray area.
Right. And the judge could say, well, it's an open invitation, you know, people could come and voice their opinion.
Reasonable expectations.
Yeah.
Let's take some of the other comments. I think we have two more. The membership of trade unions are made up of workers who identify with various political parties. It is therefore a betrayal of the membership when leaders of unions openly affiliate with a particular political party. The membership of such unions should thus replace their leadership and disassociate themselves from such toxic leaders. Left their name, I won't read it out, but on some level, yes, that came up. Now, granted, it was done in full view of the public, so I didn't want to make a big deal about it at the time. But when the head of the PSA basically says the slogan, when UNC wins, everybody wins, with her green PSA polo on, it's there's a lot there that is not the norm. It's not the norm, because one could ask, is the PSA an arm of the UNC now? I'm just remember, you know, because you have your president basically giving the slogans, right? And at what point is making political campaign promises for political support with regards to the decisions of how to utilize public resources, at what point in time is what the UNC doing within the bounds of propriety and outside the bounds of propriety? Because we love to talk about corruption all the time, and I know that this is not quite like straight clear cut, but at the same time, on principle, maybe you could argue it is. I don't know. I think we should have at least one more. You're a PNM, so talk about the UNC in year 4, you're a big dunce. Court of public opinion again. Like, listen, I remember when the PNM tried to hit, was it Sat Maraj with sedition charges? I more or less said some of the same things I'm saying today then. I'm just saying. You know, well, to be fair, I was a bit more patient with the police and police shooting incidents as opposed to this one. But at the same time, with regards to the PNM Commissioner of Police, I had a lot of issues, right? So it is what it is. I apparently was UNC before the election and now PNM after the election. Maybe I'm just enamored with the opposition party. Oh wait, I have bad talk the UNC in opposition and the PNM in opposition as well, just saying. And I'll leave that there. Unfortunately, when unalienable rights are traded for benefits and privileges from the state, those considered wards of the state can then charged appropriately or can then be charged appropriately for access to said benefits and privileges. The problem is, I think, you know, we don't have a precedent set for that yet. I don't know if you're talking about the PSA, but I think on some level it's similar to my argument with regards to the PSA, and I'll leave it there. Do we have anything left? Nope, that's it. So thanks to the callers. Thanks to the passion. I honestly don't know if it's nationwide. I really don't, but I think it's wide enough, right, in areas enough where it's, again, I'll just say this again, it's not about whether the police officers or Kayasili is innocent or guilty. It's not about whether Alyssa Phillips is innocent or guilty. I even said, listen, the law says you're going to be arrested. It is what it is, right? You decide to protest or not within that constraints. But I think it's how the public perception is, because we've just seen 2 examples in real time, one against you, one against me, right, of how it works out. Now go large scale with an entity like the UNC or the TTPS. But the real issue is, it's one thing for people to question me. I just have a TV show. It's another thing to question the government in that capacity and the police service in that capacity. And I mean, you need the public support to do your job.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Again, I meant no disrespect. You know, it is what it is that we understand each other. I guess we have a relationship on air and off air that we would understand
where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from.
So sometimes we read each other before we even say everything. So nonetheless, you know, we just want to make sure that members of the public understand that we have a job to do with respect to, within the confines of the law.
And the SOE.
And the SOE. We weren't there. I wasn't there when Ms. Phillips was arrested. I understand the perception. I believe me, I understand the perception. Perception is everything. Almost everything.
Yeah.
But it's my job to state factual stuff. It's my job to let you know the correct version of what is supposed to happen. But the perception will always be there that, you know, the TTPS, I mean, there are a number of good officers out there that do a good job, and that perception doesn't come across as much as the bad perception comes across. And we hope that, you know, we could improve on that. There is a lot of aspects of policing that can improve. And you see the commissioner trying his best to have it improved. Hopefully, we will, hopefully we'll see the improvement as time goes along. And, you know, hopefully that all these incidents, unfortunately somebody lost their life, but hopefully all the other incidents, including the arrest of Ms. Phillips, will unfold in the favor of the, the correct party. And hopefully we will all develop and grow as a nation to understand better our laws, our policing, our responsibilities, and each other.
I'll say this, that's part of the problem with the Commissioner of Police. The issues are beyond his office.
Yeah.
Some of the corrections need to happen outside of his office. And I agree with you. Some of them, even if it might be the smallest part, right? The minority of what needs to be fixed. The public and how we engage with police and understand their job, your job.
Yeah.
That needs to be improved as well. We could still have complaints. We could still have somebody saying complaints. That doesn't mean that we also don't need to improve how we view things, how we perceive things, in order to be accurate on why we perceive things the way that we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Hopefully when we have these conversations, Sean, members of the public will better understand. Like when I gave the example of the spouse quarreling with the police officer for giving a ticket to the driver, and it amounted to obstruction. Hopefully our police doesn't misuse his discretionary obligation to arrest somebody for something like that. Hopefully that doesn't happen. It could happen.
You see, discretion is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
In the sense of, yes, a police officer could misuse the discretion, but also the public could feel entitled to discretion. As though, well, you're supposed to start with
a warning.
Discretion means you're supposed to start with a warning. It's like, no, discretion means I could
start with a warning.
Or I could not.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for joining me, Chris, once again. Thanks to the callers and to the commenters online, including the one that called me a dunce. On some level, hey, maybe that is a sign I'm doing some things right. I wouldn't say everything. That said, hopefully we could all have a good day. I know it's kind of hard, depending on how invested you are in certain things, to go about your day normally while you think unfair things are happening, but still try to do so, because you don't want negativity to affect how you interact with other people, right? And pay that negativity forward, try and pay positivity forward. So have a good day. Remember your allegiance to the public and to each other. Stay safe. Don't forget it's nice to be nice, even if you're feeling upset, down, blue, mad, or vexed with whoever it is that you're interacting with, including if a police officer stops you. Just saying. Don't take out what you saw on the internet out on whatever random police officer might stop you for a routine traffic stop. Because look, we all want to be safe and sound so we can see each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Good to see you again here at WESN on the program.